Hello everybody and welcome to another video of Green Square Talks Battlebots. In this video, co-hosting here, we have Civilian Arc and Pory Nog. Say hi, you two. How are you both doing today?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing good.
Awesome. So in this video, we will be discussing the recent episode of Battlebots, episode 5, I believe it is. And then just as a warning, this video will be full of spoilers or what's up? So just as a warning, this video will be full of spoilers from that episode, so you have been warned if you haven't seen that episode and you are watching this thing. So we will go through each one of these fights one by one, discuss the whole thing, discuss our thoughts behind it and such, and so on. And yeah, you get the idea. Anything from you two before we get to the first fight?
Hydra did nothing wrong.
Yeah, he did nothing wrong, but it was poor sportsmanship.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Pory on that. I don't really want to say he did nothing wrong, but...
Okay, yeah, I kind of exaggerated on that.
Yeah. All right, so...
We'll get into that.
Yep, yeah. We will get into that fight, as that's the fourth one. All right, to start this off, we got Black Dragon and Claw Viper. Both, I was honestly thinking, could this have been a main event worthy fight? Because both of these two bots came off of very impressive first fight victories, as we saw Claw Viper get a pretty impressive win over Hijinks. Black Dragon had a close and controversial, but a really good performance in their first fight against against Kraken. And these two ended up showing off for their second fight, and we saw a very entertaining show out of it. So what do you two think of this one?
Going into this fight, I really thought that this would be a battle of driving because both bots have really great drivers at hand. And it was pretty much that. It was seeing which bot could outdrive the other, and it turned out that Black Dragon outdrove him. I do think that Claw Viper still has some potential, but I don't think it can hold up to that much spinners that well, as proven by Black Dragon.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Claw Viper's a good robot, but I feel like if it goes against a spinner that isn't gonna just spontaneously die like Hijinks, they're in for a world of hurt. Like I feel like the grappler weapon in particular, I feel like that thing will not ever be able to take a hit from like a spinner. I think they need to rethink the design of that, but it's well driven and it's fast at least, so at least there's that.
Oh yeah, very well driven, quite fast. It's honestly quite reliable, even though they went down with a fire inside their thing and such. Like overall, like I think this was a battle of two relatively similar designs, other than the weapon part, as that's a major difference between these two. And thought this fight was definitely going to be a tough one to predict, knowing like what you've said, both of these bots are very well driven. They're quite well built as well. Both of them have some speed to it and such. And yeah, no, as we saw right off the bat there, or after Claw Viper tried to box rush, the first shot that we saw, I think that bent one of the forks on Claw Viper and gave them a really hard time getting underneath Black Dragon, but they were successful a few times and such. But then, we saw some smoke coming out of Claw Viper, and eventually a fire appeared. I'm not sure whether that was like internal damage done by Black Dragon's spinner, or if Black Dragon's flame, as we got to see that flamethrower for the first time this season, work to perfection. And I'm not sure if it's possibly the flame got into Claw Viper and affected their internals. Who knows?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard any damage reports from either team, so I wouldn't know for sure.
Yeah, Claw Viper definitely seems like will probably be the Gruff of 2020. That bot that doesn't do like very well, but still shows a ton of potential in the robot.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Claw Viper would probably need their next battle. I feel like they would need to win their next one, but you never know. Like Claw Viper definitely, I think they're in a good place to make the top 32 as they've gotten one impressive victory already, and they put up a heck of a fight against another really good machine in this fight and such. And
Yeah.
Black Dragon, in my opinion, I think they have clinched their spot in the top 32 after that victory, even if they don't win their third fight.
Oh yeah, they're
Black
definitely.
Dragon has
I feel
Black
like if you
Dragon has gotten
go,
2 impressive victories.
Yeah, Black Dragon is definitely in it, and it's
you-
probably in the top 10 right now, probably.
Yeah. We'll see rankings in another video here, and I have Black Dragon ranked quite high and such.
Yeah, I think if you get 2 wins, you're pretty much definitely going to be in the bracket at this point. Like I think it's just a matter of which 1 and 2 bots are going to make it into the bracket. Like I feel like there's a few that have a good chance of it. Like we'll get into that, but but as for Claw Viper, I think they kind of have to win their next fight in order to get a bracket spot.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're kind of on the bubble, but they still, depending on who they're fighting, I still think we're gonna. Either way, I still think we're gonna see a pretty good showing from Claw Viper next fight, no matter what.
Definitely.
Yeah, and they are in the bounty tournament too, and they could always succeed there if they don't make the top 32.
Yeah, we already saw Rotator and Scorpio succeed and win $25,000, I believe it is, and such.
Yeah.
All right, so fight number 2, unless if you two have anything else you want to say.
Nope.
All right. Next up, we got Jackpot and Ghost Raptor. Jackpot came off of a win against Sub-Zero in their first fight, but then definitely seemed to be having quite a few issues during that one. They're taking on Ghost Raptor, veteran Chuck Pitzer. Came off of a loss against Shatter in their first battle here. Want to hear your opinions on this fight to start it off.
I was wrong about Jackpot. I mean, I kind of had a feeling that they would win this, but not in the way they did. Because I don't know, I wasn't sold on Jackpot in their last fight because they were having like issues with like their wedgelets and all that, and they pretty much only beat Sub-Zero because Sub-Zero pulled a Sub-Zero, and like I feel like this fight has sold me on. Plus, they're the first robot to split another robot in half this season, which is cool.
Yeah, I definitely underestimated Jackpot this season. I think they said this was like a $4,000 bot.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And like it destroyed Ghost Raptor. I was amazed. I did not have faith in Jackpot in the Sub-Zero fight. I did think it would win this fight, but not in this way. This was amazing. It definitely shows how destructive Jackpot's weapon actually is.
Yeah, Jackpot definitely talked about a lot of the issues they had in their first fight with Sub-Zero on social media, and coming to this fight, they definitely fixed a lot of those problems as they came in here and just destroyed Ghost Raptor and such. Like, I thought Ghost Raptor's weapon was going to fall early in this fight, but that didn't. Ghost Raptor's weapon didn't just fall in that fight and stop spinning. Jackpot literally separated the spinner from the rest of the bot on one of the first shots from that vertical spinner. Jackpot definitely proved after this one that they are the real deal this season and such. Like, this was a far more impressive victory for Jackpot than in their first fight.
Oh yeah.
So, do you two think that now that Jackpot is 2-0, that Jackpot has sealed a spot in the top 32?
100%, yeah.
I'd say they're a bit on the bubble. I think at the very least they need to, if they lose their next fight, they need to like have a good loss next fight, because their Sub-Zero win, that was a little bit, it was just Sub-Zero kind of shorting out like it usually does. Jackpot was really impressive this fight, but I think they need to at least do somewhat good in their next fight to seal their seed in the top 32. I do think they're probably ranked in the top 32 right now, but I do not. I think that they're on the bubble right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Civilian here. Is I wasn't the most impressed with their win against Sub-Zero, but was very impressed with this win
Yeah.
over Ghost Raptor. I think they either need to win, their third fight, or they need to lose their next fight, but show that they did very well in that fight, showed lots of potential and stuff, proved that it was like a good loss or something like that, if you kind of get what I'm saying by that
Yeah.
and such. But I do think Jackpot
Yeah.
likely has clinched their spots, but not 100%
Mm-hmm.
and sure on that and such. And so the other question
I
is,
think
you go ahead, Pory.
I was gonna say, I think at this point they're definitely in the top 32, but their next fight is, I think it's going to determine whether they're in the top 10 seeds or if they're in the bottom 10 seeds. That's where we, like, at the point where they stand now, I'd probably say like they're like in the 20s, high 20s. But I feel like if they got a good win in their next fight, they could be in the top 10. Although I don't see them winning their next fight. So
Who are they taking on?
Lockjaw. They're not going to win that.
Ooh, that's yikes.
It's definitely possible, but
I can see Jackpot.
Possible.
I can see Jackpot pulling off an upset.
Yeah, I could definitely
it's
see
possible,
that.
But it's going to be a hard one to.
It's always hard to
Yeah,
fight.
Lockjaw has definitely been having their fair share of issues so far this season, which we'll get to that once we get to Lockjaw and Big Dill's fight.
Yeah, but
and so
if they beat Lockjaw, I think they'll definitely secure like a top 10 seed, no questions asked.
Oh yeah.
All right. So the other question that I got is, Ghost Raptor is sitting at 0-2 right now, and we know their next fight is up against Chomp, as for the previews Battlebots has shown. Do you think Ghost Raptor can crawl back from these two losses right here and get back into the top 32?
No. I don't think that they have a chance at all, because both of their losses, it got its ass handed to it. And I mean, I don't, even if it does beat Chomp, it's like, it's probably not going to be anything like phenomenal. It's probably going to be like, it hits Chomp in like the right spot.
I do not think the Chomp versus Ghost Raptor fight is a preseason fight. I think it is either a postseason fight or an exhibition match, one of the two. I do not think Ghost Raptor is fighting Chomp as its third and final opponent.
Out of curiosity, what's your reasoning behind that? Anyway,
just because,
not that I disagree with your point there.
I feel like if Ghost Raptor does get into the top 32, it's going to be a really low seed due to its first two fights. Like, no offense to Chuck Bitzer, but if it makes the tournament, it's going to get like bottom 5 seed probably. But Chomp looks like it could get top 5 seed depending on the fights it gets. And so I believe that if Chomp gets a high seed and Ghost Raptor gets a low seed, it'll more than likely be Chomp versus Ghost Raptor round of 32, or it could be an exhibition match. That's the way I see it. So I think Ghost Raptor has the potential to pull off a good win in its third fight, depending on who it is. I could be wrong, and it might be Chomp, but Ghost Raptor needs to get a really great win in its third fight to lock itself into the top 32.
Yeah, as for my opinion, I do think I don't think Ghost Raptor's chances of getting into the top 32 is 0, but I do think it is very low, as like what Pory said. They had 2 not very impressive losses so far, as Ghost Raptor just hasn't exactly been the Ghost Raptor we saw back in like 2015 and 2016. Both of their opponents so far has dismantled them in different ways so far this season. So
I'd say it's on par with its last appearance. Its last appearance, it got its ass kicked in 3 fights. So it's pretty much on the.
Yeah, because they definitely did get their butt kicked when they fought Hypershock. But then, they did manage to win against Deadlift, but they were also losing that fight until Deadlift kind of, I think, killed itself.
Not a good one. Yeah, but I mean, it's not like out of character because I mean, I meant in like 2016, like all three fights it had in season 2 were pretty convincing losses. Like it got destroyed by Son of Waiachi, it got suplexed
Yeah.
nonstop by Razorback, and then it lost to Lockjaw. Like
Kind of like with the Razorback and that Rumble thing, like I personally think that Ghost Raptor was not exactly a bad bot then, but they had a heck of a repair job after that Son of Waiachi fight. And that was,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think the
which,
reason Ghost Raptor did so well in 2015 is that he had to implement a ton of strategy going into the postseason after its complete control fight. But now that Chuck has his spinner, he's not implementing like an insane strategy going in. So it's kind of like just Chuck using its spinner against the opponent and not really having a real strategy for its opponents. That's the way
yeah.
I see it.
yeah,
His 2015 run also I feel like was a lot of luck. Like his first
yeah,
win, complete control was barely moving. Its second win, Warrior Clan. It's Warrior Clan. Its third win, Ice Wave just happened to hit its wedge just right, and if it wouldn't have, Ice Wave probably would have beaten it.
yeah, I would definitely
Like
agree with that, except for the Ice Wave part, is I thought that was my favorite win that Ghost Raptor has probably gotten like
oh yeah, me
every
too.
season so far. Is I thought the de-icer thing that they
Easily
came in with
impressive.
specifically for Ice Wave was pure genius,
It was.
and it was a lot more impressive than the de-icer that Hydra came with for Huge, which we'll discuss and
Well, at least
discuss
Ghost
later in
Raptor
this
could
podcast.
go up and down and stuff. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
but
Ghost
I think
Raptor
the
still had
issue
the
with
lifter active during that and
Yeah.
such.
yeah, I think the issue with Ghost Raptor is just that it's too ambitious of a design. Like I feel like Ghost Raptor either needs to be a lifter or it needs to be a horizontal spinner. Like it, I think
Maybe
it
modular.
being both really hurts it.
Yeah,
I know it's unique
that
and
is
stuff,
something
but
my family and I were discussing involving Ghost Raptor after we watched it fight Jackpot there. Yeah, it's something I came up with was if Ghost Raptor does return for another season, they should be like one or the other of a spinner or a lifter. I feel like his reliability would be so much better during that, and he would have he would have quite a bit more weight if he just took out one of those two weapons to increase
make
and
it
to
more
improve the
sturdy.
structure of his bot, as we saw it fall apart quite easily when they took on Jackpot and such.
Yeah, like either make it like just a something sort of like Mecha Rampage, where it's like the wheels on the side and like this deadly spinner in the middle, nice secure thing, or make it like a heavyweight like Gamma Raptor or something. Because I mean, it sort of already has the similar design. Like you can even see in the wheels on the side, like it has the same side styles as the Gamma Raptor line anyway.
Agreed and such. So yeah, I definitely think Ghost Raptor needs a really impressive third victory if they are to sneak into the top 32, which it is definitely possible, but I think the chances of that are reasonably low, as I think unless if they have a very impressive third fight, I think they're likely to choose other 1 and 2 bots over Ghost Raptor, knowing the Battlebots is probably going to accept a few of them into the top 32
Yeah.
and such. Like it'll be hard for Ghost Raptor, but it's definitely possible. Oh, and we could easily see that happen.
We've seen crazier things happen in BattleBots.
Yep. All right. Anything else from you two, or should we go to the third fight?
Go to the third fight.
All right. Fight number 3. We got Sub-Zero and Grabot. Grabot, this is their debut to the arena as for what we've seen so far. Or is this is their first televised fight this season? They're taking on Sub-Zero, who came off of a loss against Jackpot in one of the more recent episodes and such. And so yeah, what is your opinion on this fight here?
I was really excited for this just because for them to show like the pure power of Sub-Zero's flipper, because I was pretty sure Sub-Zero was going into this fight with a win, and it did just that. And there's not a lot to talk about with this fight, but the stuff that happens in this fight, it's just what you want out of BattleBots Flipper. This is a classic BattleBot Flipper domination fight, and that's pretty much the best way possible for Sub-Zero to get a win. Just pure domination.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. It was a good fight. And my favorite part was when that one flip he did where he flipped it and like nailed Spitfire with Grabot. Like that was my favorite part of the fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good fight. I mean, I don't think like Grabot's a neat robot. Like it's an interesting concept, but like I feel like there's no chance of them winning a fight. Like I feel like they're no offense to them, but they're the bottom of the pack just because of how impractical the weapon is. Like those arms could barely lift up a cinder block. I don't think they're going to be able to lift up like a 250-pound robot that's moving around and trying to kill them. You know, it's just it seems impractical. But I think the robot sort of exists more so as a proof of concept because they have a company that like makes the grabbing arms like that, so they can be like, ooh, they can take the punishment from like Sub-Zero. Look at that, and then people will buy it. You know.
Yeah, definitely. No, this was definitely an impressive bounce back for Sub-Zero from their last fight, as we saw them not function exactly the best, at least part way into that fight with Jackpot, but then we saw them fully functional and we saw them dominate this one like how they did against P1. And yeah, like what you said, Pory, one of my favorite parts of the match was when when Grabot went flying once. They accidentally nailed Spitfire, but then Spitfire was still flying after that. Like Spitfire came off of that, like very little damage to it. Makes me wonder,
Spitfire's a beast.
Could Spitfire survive a rake strike from Hypershock? Although I think the answer would probably be no, knowing how Hypershock took out Warrior Clan's drone that season and such.
Yeah.
What I will state, though, is while this kind of was an impressive victory for Sub-Zero, I want to see them do what they were able to do in this fight again, but no offense to Grabot if you're watching this video, but I want to see Sub-Zero take on an elite or veteran machine for their third fight and do the same thing that they were able to do in this fight. As while this definitely was a good victory for them, I don't think it would exactly influence the selection committee much. And I'm pretty sure they would need the second win in order to get into the top 32 right now. Like, I imagine the selection committee probably would have them in the top 32 right now, but probably as a very low seed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sub-Zero definitely needs a really good win just to end its season and punch its ticket into the top 32. It's on the bubble right now. Depending on who it's fighting, I'm not sure who its third fight is, but I can see
Sub-Zero. I know who.
Who?
Sporkanog.
Okay, so that's an easy Sub-Zero win.
I believe in Sporkanog. Sporkanog can take it.
I believe Sub-Zero is getting a 2-1 record.
Yeah, I feel like what I would probably predict is Sub-Zero by a judge's decision. Is we saw Sporkanog be able to take Hypershock and the bounty thing, survive the full 3 minutes with it, even though they still lost that fight and such. But yeah, and so on. So anything else?
I believe in Sporkanog.
Yeah. It's definitely possible, as we've seen really crazy stuff happen this season so far. All right, anything else from you two, or should we get to the next fight?
I don't got much else.
Yeah, same.
For fight number 4, we got Huge versus Hydra. Going to be the fun one to discuss here, as many people have been reacting about this one, quite a few of them negative comments and such. Basically, before we get to this, I'll explain what's going on here. Basically, Hydra came into this with what they would call a cow catcher, similar to Ghost Raptor's de-icer as for the purpose, as they use that thing to try to keep Huge's spinner away from Hydra as much as possible, which they were able to keep it away from them for all except for one small moment where Huge got a tiny spark in there, tiny bit of damage in there, but then that was about it. So Hydra managed to control almost the whole entire fight, but as it but what some people were quite angry with was like halfway through the fight, something like that, Hydra managed to kind of pin Huge in the corner. Like they technically weren't like pushing against them right against the rails there, or like something that Jake Ewert wouldn't count as a pin, but like Battlebots and the referee and even Jonathan Schultz as well would count it as a pin, as I don't know if it was or wasn't or such. And we saw a big argument between Jake Ewert and the referee, and Jake Ewert ended up getting a warning because he refused to back off because he didn't think he was pinning Huge in the corner and such. And so, yeah, we saw the fight go to the judges eventually, where they awarded Hydra with a unanimous decision victory, despite them not using their flipper even once. And we saw Jonathan Schultz obviously quite angry with that, as for when Chris and Kenny interviewed him at the end of the fight. And that was honestly the same thing with the builders too, as we saw video footage in the pits of a lot of the teams and builders giving a big thumbs down to that judge's decision and such. So let's now get to each other's opinions here. So I'm going to ask a few questions here. The first one is, what did you think of the judge's decision? What was your opinion on it? Let's just go through each question one by one. And here, let's start off with that one. What was your opinion on the judge's decision? And for this one,
I'll
hear the answer.
So I will say I agree with it. I agree with the decision. I hate how Hydra and Jake acted, but I agree with the decision. Huge didn't do much damage. Hydra had all the control. Aggression is always a hard thing to talk about, but I'd probably give slight aggression to Hydra. But I agree. So overall, I agree with the decision.
you want to go next, Pory?
Yeah, I don't really agree with the decision, but it's just such a hard thing to tell. Like my grievances with the fight more so lie in the execution of everything. But as far as the decision goes, like, I mean, I would probably I would probably say damage like 4-1 for Huge, because Hydra really didn't do any damage. He got Huge under the hammer, which didn't do anything like one time. Like that's not much at all. I mean, I know Huge only got like one hit on that frame one time, but like in a fight where it's just like this, I like that's significant. And as for control, obviously control is Hydra like 3-0, no question. And then as for aggression, I would probably give aggression to Huge 2-1, because you can't really score a lot of aggression points if you aren't actually using your weapon.
Yeah, so as of my opinion, I disagreed with the decision as well. Yeah, control would definitely be the easiest thing to judge here, as we saw Hydra controlling like the entire fight, as we saw them just constantly pushing Huge around the box and such. I would give Hydra all 3 control points. Aggression and damage is just so hard to judge in this fight, because both of those things involve primary weapon usage. The big problem is we didn't see any primary weapon usage out of Hydra, which really pissed off a lot of people in the pits after this fight.
Yeah.
And then Huge, where they had like a tiny little jab there, which is pretty much what that image is. That one time that Huge,
Yeah, the one hit in.
that one shot that Huge managed to get in with that spinner. As for how I judged this thing, I actually gave Huge all 3 aggression points, because Jonathan Schultz was constantly trying to use that primary weapon. even though he was only successful once, he was charging right at Hydra, despite him just getting denied every time trying to use that vertical spinner. Or no, I personally think Huge was like very aggressive with like Battlebots' definition of aggression here in this competition, even though I kind of disagree with their definition. Like, that's how I see it with their definition.
Yeah.
And as for damage, there wasn't really any damage done by either of them. But then, yeah, of course, we saw Huge manage to land one jab in there, which was really all the primary weapon usage and success that we saw out of either team. I'm probably going to be generous to Hydra and give them a few damage points, but I think Huge wins the damage category. I would go probably 3-2, knowing so little damage was done between either of them and such. So yeah, I scored it 6-5 in favor of Huge for this one. I'm not really gonna trash talk about the judges at all here, as they're three very experienced builders. They have seen situations similar to this and such, and even fought in some of them too. Like, and plus, I imagine like if I was in one of their seats, I would probably do an even worse job than I would probably call some fights a lot worse than some of them have. Like, yeah, if I was in one of those seats there. I don't want to trash talk about them at all, but I'm really starting to see exactly, because I know Pory, I know you said that there were some builders that are threatening to not return to BattleBots
That's
for
what
the
I heard.
next few seasons. I'm really starting to see why that's happening after the Beta and Rotator fight, and even though I technically agreed with that decision, along with this one on here.
Yeah, from what I gather, this fight happened before Beta and Rotator, and this was like, and like Beta and Rotator is just like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, this fight was like the big one that kind of built it up, but then that fight happened, and then they were just like, yeah, no, because Beta was in they were in quarantine for 2 weeks, so all their fights were like a little later. Like how Bronco shows up late every season.
Yeah.
So this fight, that being their first fight, yeah. This fight actually predates it. If I agree, I could be wrong. I mean, feel free to correct me. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but that's what I heard.
All right. So the second question now is, we saw Hydra pin Huge in the corner, and eventually we saw a major argument between Jake Ewert and the referee, as the ref, Jonathan Schultz, and lots of the builders over in the pit who were viewing the fight or watching from the pit saw that as a pin, but while Jake Ewert didn't see it as a pin, so we saw a heated argument between him and the referee. What was exactly your opinion on that thing? So we'll go one by one as for that one.
As I said in my video about this fight, I definitely feel like the ref was technically right about calling it a pin, even though you could argue that it wasn't really a pin. But like, Huge couldn't go anywhere. The main thing is that Hydra's width with the cow catcher basically made it so Huge couldn't do anything. So while it isn't technically a pin, it's pretty much the next worst thing.
Yeah.
So I feel Hydra should have been disqualified for that, especially with arguing with the referee for that. Like, the referee is supposed to be like this unbiased person. He's supposed to be the one who like gives a decision. Is it a pin? Is it not? If the ref says it's a pin, it's a pin. Back up. You're not backing up. So you should get disqualified.
Yeah, I think it's the pin, like, it doesn't have to be limited to like the robot straight up is like smushed against the robot as it's on the wall. Like, yeah, he technically wasn't even touching Huge, but like it was he still had Huge in the corner and Huge couldn't get out. I don't even think Huge could even like turn in a circle. I would count that as a pin. He's locked him in the corner. I mean, sure, maybe not by definition, but I would still count that, and I do agree that he probably should have gotten disqualified for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree that I do think Hydra should have been disqualified, as we now is this gonna compare this kind of like a situation to Petunia and Marvin from last season, where we saw Petunia get a ton of bites on Marvin, but then when the ref told them to release Marvin, they released Marvin and they gave Marvin some space to like accurately get
Mhm.
away. I
Yeah.
know you touched on this a little bit in your video, Civilian. Basically, we saw Hydra like we saw that like they trapped Huge in the corner with that cow catcher there. Just did not let Huge escape there. And Jake was arguing with the referee, we did see him like back off, but like a tiny amount, like not enough to where Huge was able to get untrapped from the corner, as Huge was still trapped in the corner and just unable to get out and such. I do think Hydra should have been disqualified because of that,
Yeah.
and yeah, like I don't really have much against Hydra. As for like this was really an excellent strategy to keep Huge's
Oh yeah.
weapon away from them and damaging them, but how Jake acted during that point in the fight was unacceptable to me. Was really bad sportsmanship and such. Like yeah, I found this fight to not be a very impressive fight for Hydra. Like I get that he wants to
Yeah.
go for the giant nut, but if he wants to win, if he wants to get there though, he needs to do like what Bite Force and Tombstone were able to do those past 4 seasons, where every one of their fights were like reasonably impressive, like very entertaining showings and such.
Like their witch doctor fight was entertaining, but like the huge Hydra fight, this fight has to be the most boring aired fight of the modern BattleBots. Like,
Yeah.
if these were like two completely different bots that weren't like shown in previous seasons, I have no doubt this would be a basement fight.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree with that. I also kind of throw a little bit of blame towards BattleBots as well, as one thing we have not been seeing very much this season is them being exactly consistent or enforcing a lot of the rules. As
Mhm.
somebody did post over in BattleBots Facebook group a picture of the rules involved in a pin, and you can be disqualified for either
Yeah.
arguing with the ref or pinning an opponent in the corner too long, unless if it's a situation like Quantum and Andrew or Quantum, Andrew and 4000, Big Dill, like those situations in BattleBots and Robot Wars as well. Oh, like they have an
Yeah.
exception to that, but with what Hydra was doing, that was something they could have been disqualified for. I think they
Yeah.
should have. It sounds like you two agree with that, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
BattleBots just didn't really enforce that rule at all. So I don't throw all of the blame towards like the referee or Jake Ewert, but yeah,
Yeah.
this one was a wild fight, and it's explaining a lot that we've been seeing like ever since the episode between where we saw Beta and Rotator fight.
Yeah. But I feel like also it's just like just in general, like there's so many other things wrong with this. Like the fact that from what I hear, they didn't even have the flipper turned on. Like they should not have been allowed to go into the box without proving that that flipper works. Like they should have like at the beginning of the fight, like when they say like robots activating, like they test to make sure that they're moving, they should show like, oh, my weapon works. Like they should have that be a requirement, because if he's gonna just show up as a wedge bot, that sort of belittles everything. Like there's all these robots that get rejected every year that do have weapons, and they get rejected for their weapons not being good enough. And meanwhile, the ones that do have good weapons are like, oh, I'm gonna just not use it because this opponent's here. Additionally, speaking opponents so scary, like they're there to win the nut. They want to win, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, but I don't want to actually like earn it by winning it. I want to use this like poor sportsmanship tactic to fight Huge because I'm too scared to actually face it myself. I mean, Mammoth is literally like a freaking frame, and they got in the box with Huge, and they were just like, I'm going for it. I'm going to try to flip this thing around, and it
Yeah,
worked in
like
their
even
favor. But
Bronco
Huge
did
can't do
that.
it.
Even Bronco
Yeah,
was did that last season. Like came
Bronco,
in with an attachment for Huge, and that fight with Huge that Bronco had was my favorite fight of all of last
Mhm.
season for
Yeah.
at least for Bronco, and probably one of my
Yeah.
top 5 or 10 fights of that season.
And Jake,
they
you were
flipped
kept
over.
saying that like the design is very similar to Bronco. No, it's nowhere near the design of what Bronco used against Huge.
Yeah.
Bronco actually tried to flip Huge. You didn't try to do any of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like they actually tried. Like and he just was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna push him around." And from what I'm hearing, it's the secondhand information, so I could be wrong. He basically did that like as like a protest, like, "Oh, you're gonna pit me against a bot that I can't beat, so in retaliation, I'm gonna give you like the most boring fight of the season," which I don't agree with.
It's not like he can't take on Huge or something else. We saw Bronco give a great shot at taking on Huge.
Yeah, if Hydra tried to use the same design that Bronco used, I have no doubt that Hydra would at least flip Huge a big amount of feet in the air and at least get a split decision win. It might lose a split decision on Huge, but if it used like the Bronco design, it would have probably put on a much better showing and probably a bigger showing to the selection committee. You think Hydra's not getting anywhere with this fight for the selection committee? No, they're not moving up in the ranks for that. No.
Yeah. No, is like they also did mention like in their one of their posts from this episode, like think they would have come in with something different if they actually prepared something. Now, as they had a competition where you would like edit a picture or of Hydra and something like that with what you think they would come to the arena with if they would have had the time to construct that and such. Like, I wonder if they wouldn't have come, they would have come with something different if they would have prepared for Huge, kind of like was said in that post, and like possibly this was like last minute or something like that. Because I don't think this would be too difficult to create and such.
I heard they showed up to the competition with this thing.
Or
That's what I
that.
heard at least. But yeah, but I mean, it also they have like they've been showing off their configurations. They have like a configuration where like the top gets really armored, like for like if they fight like Shatter or something or Solve Lace, like they have a configuration for that they could use. So it's not
Pretty
really an
much
excuse.
what I did because I entered in that thing. I had a picture of their horizontal armor configuration, and then I attached a shovel to like the top of their flipper, or hoping that would give them some armor up front, and then as well give them some height for their flipper, so that way
Yeah.
they could properly use that thing. That was my idea. I don't think it won, but it was something I had in mind that I thought would be good and such.
I considered entering with like a meme picture of like them with the tornado cage. Like I probably would have won if I had entered that. Like,
Oh man. Ugh. All
but,
right, so
but there's one more funny thing that I saw on the Facebook group. There was like a post that Clint Ewart, the guy who built Falcon, the Ewart brother built him. He's like making a post. He's like, I'm just glad people don't hate on Falcon anymore because everyone's hating on Hydra now.
yeah, definitely. All right, so my third question now involved in this fight, which you kind of touched on this a tiny bit, Pory.
Yeah.
So, Battlebots is now deciding that they will come up with a rule where they will penalize bots for not willingly using their primary weapon. Like, there's an exception to that if someone's primary weapon gets damaged to the point where they can't use it at all and such, or if a spinner stops spinning, stuff
Yeah.
like that and such. They have an exception to that.
Yeah.
But if they came out with a rule where they could penalize bots for not willingly using their primary weapon and such, what would you exactly think of that and such? What's your opinion on that?
Do it. I feel they should do it. I mean, if you have a weapon, you should use it. And I mean, I'm not saying like if you don't use the weapon, you should automatically lose. I'm not saying that at all. But I feel like if you have a functional weapon and you just flat out refuse to use it, that you should get like 0 aggression points or something like that. Like it should just affect your score greatly. So like that'll deter people from doing it because, and also like I said earlier, I think before the fight they should like make the builder confirm that this works. Like if they throw Gravot in the arena, like Gravot has to like twist its arms around or whatever it's doing. Like it has to, they gotta prove that their weapon is functional and that they can use it before they actually turn on the green light and have the fight go on.
What's your opinion, Civilian?
Overall, I agree with the decision of the penalization for that. You don't, just like Pory said, you don't have to keep using your weapon constantly, but like you have a weapon. It's use it. Even if Hydra came in with the flipper working and like decided to just like flip when both Hydra and Huge were at like the middle of the arena and they weren't even touching each other, I'm sure Hydra would get like a few aggression points for that because they decided to use their weapon. Or if they attempted to go for like a wheel flip.
Yeah.
I think they need to, I think the active weapon rule, I agree with it overall.
Overall, for my opinion, I think it's a good idea, but I'm kind of iffy with that thing. Like I'm right in the middle. Like what I definitely think they should do is like penalize stuff like what Hydra did with the pen part of that. I definitely think they should come up with rules to penalize that more, enforce stuff like that. Because like with the primary weapon usage thing, like here, we definitely saw none of it, and they knew like they weren't going to use their primary weapon at all if that device worked and such. Compared to like Beta and Rotator, where if Beta got Rotator in the right situation, which they weren't able to, like they would have fired the hammer and such. Like even though I was really hoping to and was disappointed we didn't get to see it. Like this is like a really difficult decision. And as for this stuff right here, as for the primary weapon usage and stuff, like I think this would definitely really help spinner bots, but this is like another thing because like Battlebots has always been like anti towards all non-spinners and such, which is one problem I've had with Battlebots. It's like ever since, especially the 2016 season, but yeah, this is that like the Beta and Rotator, I wouldn't exactly count that as a situation as for how I saw that fight where they need to enforce that primary weapon rule. Well, because Beta actually wanted to use that hammer and such, but then of course wasn't given the opportunity. Compared to this one where Hydra knew if that thing worked, they wouldn't be using their weapon at all and such. And
yeah, Beta was situational, and Hydra just decided not to use their flipper.
Yeah, it's a really tough decision overall whether Battlebots should do that, which is why I'm like right in the middle. Like it's a stalemate for me, to be honest, as for what I think of that rule. If Battlebots does enforce it, which it sounds like according to their Twitter, they will be enforcing that rule. All right, so next question, which we'll just combine these two here. Here. With Hydra at 2-0 here, you think they have clinched their spot in the top 32, and as well with Huge at 0-2, do you think Huge can bounce back from that and possibly get into the top 32?
Well, I feel like Hydra's definitely in. I mean, they're 2-0 right now. You know, I think regardless, they're going to get in. I think it's the same case as the Jackpot fight, where their next fight, like, if they lose their next fight, they're probably going to be looking at like a 23 seed or something. But if they win their next fight, they're going to probably look at like a 10 seed. Their Witch Doctor fight was very impressive. Plus, they beat Witch Doctor, which is impressive on its own. So they're not going to get like a super low seed regardless. But this fight definitely is not going to look good for them in the selection committee, because they're going to, like, I feel like if anything, this fight's going to make Huge look good more than anything, because Huge actually was trying to do something, even if they weren't able to do it. And with that said, for the second question, yeah, I think if Huge does well in their next fight, they'll probably be like the leader of the pack as far as 1 and 2 bots go.
So what do you think, Civilian?
Um, Hydra, I think, has already locked in their spot in the top 32. They're more than likely in it. But depending on their third fight, it'll show them whether they're going to get like a high seed or low seed. Because I'm pretty sure no matter what, they're more than definitely getting at least in the top 20 for the tournament. But it just
Yeah.
depends whether they're going to get like a 16 seed or a 5 seed, depending on their third fight. As for Huge, I'd say that they're if they put on a good showing for their third fight, they will more than definitely make it into the postseason. I do not doubt that. Huge has always been a bot known for bouncing back, and like from its Son of Waiachi fight. So I don't doubt that Huge could pull up a win in its third fight and get into the postseason.
So yeah, as for my opinion, I'll start with Huge for this one. I definitely think Huge can bounce back. Now, I don't like that Mammoth one probably hurt them a little. Hydra fight, I think that hurt them less than the one with Mammoth, as we saw Huge trying to do
Oh, yeah.
something, and then Hydra just didn't pull off an impressive show here, in my opinion. Now, as Huge, I feel like if they could get a win, like many of the wins they've got in the past 2 seasons, Gigabyte, Bronco, Hypershock, pretty much
Mhm.
all of their wins in 2018, if they can pull off something like that, I think they definitely have a spot
Yeah.
secured in the top 32.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Huge. I think they're like what you said, Pory. I think if they go 1-2 and pull off an impressive third victory, I think they'll be like near the top of the tables to get a spot out the 1-2 machines here in this competition.
Yeah.
And then for Hydra, I definitely think this one hurt them a lot. Now, as we saw them take on Witch Doctor or in their first fight and got a very impressive victory out of it. As we saw them constantly tossing Witch Doctor around the arena, showed off the power of that flipper. Like that's huge for the selection committee. Compared to here,
Yeah.
where we saw them come out with a configuration that I don't have anything against Hydra for that, is this was an excellent strategy that they went with. But the fact that they only showed off defense, they showed off no offense whatsoever, other than really pushing them around, which I don't exactly know if you could really count that as much as offense. But
Yeah.
even though they're 2-0 right now, I did not find this win very impressive. I don't know what their third fight is, but
Yeah. I don't know.
if they lose that fight, I'd see Hydra somewhere around like the low 20s or the high teens area for their rankings and
Yeah.
stuff. But then if they get that third win and actually put up like a really impressive show, like what we've seen out of Hydra in the fight with Witch Doctor and many of their victories last season, and
Hmm.
I think they could definitely I think they could definitely pull this one off and manage to manage to get a much higher seed. I don't think they will get like I don't know if I really see them getting the top 5 if they even if they win their third fight with an
Yeah.
impressive fashion, but I could definitely see a top 10 happening.
Top 10. Yeah. I think for their third fight, like I feel like Hydra needs like a hard opponent for their third fight. If like they need to be like shown a hard opponent. If
Didn't they
anything,
show
only
that?
of a lesson. Like throw like Tombstone or like Bloodsport at him for the third fight, and then we'll go from there. I mean, I was thinking Hydra and Tombstone should fight this season anyway because it only makes sense. But yeah, that's what I think. I think they should definitely fight. And I have a theory that if Huge wins its next fight, what they might try to do is they might give Hydra a high seed and they might give Huge a low seed, and they might make it so that for the round of 32 they fight each other, like what they do with like Lockjaw and Overhaul. Since
Yeah,
there's
like
so much
Jonathan
controversy,
Schultz
like, ooh,
already
yeah, they're fighting
yeah,
again.
Jonathan Schultz already said he wants a rematch with Huge, but he wants Jake. But then he taunted Jake a little by saying that he will do it when Jake Ewer actually comes, like wanting to fight between the two of them and such. I don't think that's the exact wording he used, but that's kind of what he was
That
hinting in
it's the
that interview.
same. context. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said
I could definitely
you were
see them like making them fight in the round 32.
you said something civilian during that.
Didn't they show, like, in the BattleBots intro for episode 1, they showed a clip of Hydra and Hypershock fighting, or did that look like a 2019?
Oh, right, you're right.
Yeah, I want to say I saw that
I forgot that was
somewhere.
the thing.
So maybe, I'm not sure if they were just re-showing a clip from 2019 or if that's actually a 2020 clip. So Hydra might be fighting Hypershock for its third fight.
Yeah.
You're right. I forgot that was a thing. But yeah,
That's very
hopefully
possible.
Hypershock will give them a run for their money.
All right. Yeah, long discussion over this one. Should we get to the next battle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now 3 fights left. All of them with a lot of drama. One thing I forgot to mention, though, forgot to state that I did kind of wanted to state, I kind of agree that Jonathan Schultz definitely had the right to be angry after that fight with Hydra. There,
Yeah.
I don't know how well you two would agree there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would be
Something
pissed.
minor.
I would be fuming.
Yeah. Whoops.
Spoiler alert.
Yep. Spoiler alert. That fight's second out of these 3. All right. So then we got Fusion and Aegis. Sorry, I always mispronounce that bot and such.
I thought it was Aegis until the episode.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. But then one of my parents, who knows mythology a lot better than me, told me the real pronunciation of it. So this fight ended a lot quicker than the last one did, and it was quite fantastic fashion too. Now, as we got Aegis on one side, where this is their first fight this season, at least that we know of, that we've seen, and then we got
their first,
and then we got Fusion on the other side, where they took a loss to Mad Catter in the opening episode. Fusion definitely came back from this one. Like, I thought that this came back from the last one. Like, that was definitely an impressive victory out of Fusion here and stuff. Like, what are your opinions on this one?
Much like Jackpot, I was really underestimated in the strength of Fusion's weapon. When it did all that damage to Aegis, it was amazing. Just like ripping off like an entire shell piece of Aegis is really destructive.
Yeah, I definitely underestimated them. I do kind of feel like they sort of threw Fusion a bone. Like, they were like, oh, okay, let's see if your spinner can damage the Kevlar robot. You know, like, I feel like Aegis probably should have had, like, someone easier for their first fight, like Black Widow or something, like, since they're a rookie and it's their first time. But, you know, getting thrown to Team Waiachi for your first fight just seems a little cruel in a way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, like, Aegis, it seemed like one misflip there cost them the entire fight. Now, as they used that flipper too early, and Fusion took advantage of that big time and managed to tear off an entire side of Kevlar or armor there, and managed to cause a lot more pieces to fly off and stuff. Kevlar is proven after that fight to not exactly be the best material. Now, as for my knowledge, it is strong and relatively tensile, but as proved right here, like,
a bad idea.
It's not as well armor. It's not good armor for something like this compared to like bulletproof vests and stuff like that it's used for and stuff. And
yeah, I mean, I'm not a robot expert, but I feel like even when I heard it was made out of Kevlar, I was like, because I mean, if you have a bulletproof vest, if let's say theoretically I have like a catapult and I have Fusion on the catapult and I like turn on the spinner and I throw Fusion at a guy wearing a bulletproof vest, I'm pretty sure it's still gonna die. Like,
that's major. That's like we're breaking ultimate technology here.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure
Fusion catapult.
Like, I'm pretty sure, like I know an AK-47 bullet could get through, like, a bulletproof vest and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure Fusion spinners have more power than that, and lots of big spinners would probably also be able to get through that armor quite easily here. Like,
yeah,
I was a little disappointed as I disappointed that Aegis didn't really survive for very long, but I still think that bot has the design and stuff to win and win and stuff. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we have seen some like test videos and such of like that flipper, I believe, Eve, if I remember right, and I think the flipper
There's
does
test
have,
footage, yeah.
yes, I believe the flipper does have some power to it, and I really hope we get to see that in like a future episode from Aegis, as I think Aegis could definitely come back from this one, but I don't think they would go very far in the tournament, and
Yeah.
especially if their armor is as delicate as Fusion exposed it to be.
Yeah, I
think
agree. Oh,
I
you can go
think
ahead, sorry.
I think Aegis is going to be one of those bots where it's like it's entertaining to watch because it just gets ripped to shreds because of its opponents it fights. Because I don't know Aegis's next two opponents, but I
I don't know.
it's just probably going to get, unless it's because like they weren't timed well with that flip, but I'm sure if they timed it correctly, they could have flipped them and it could have been a different turnout of this fight.
Yeah.
I feel like the turnout probably would have been the same, knowing that Fusion can drive upside down, but Aegis
But
definitely would have lasted a lot longer in
yeah,
that one if they did manage to succeed at that and such. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like overall, I do agree with your point, Civilian, and on that part, hurt and such. So, so I'm only gonna ask this question for Fusion. But now that they're sitting at 1-1 right now, where do you think they are sitting at right now as for like a spot in the top 32?
I'd say they're like in the bottom tens probably because they lost to Mad Catter and then they beat a bot that we don't know much about, so it wasn't that like it wasn't really impressive. Don't get me wrong, the win was impressive, but like we don't know that much about Aegis, so we can't really say that it's like insane and an amazing win like Hydra versus Witch Doctor. It probably gave Fusion some credit for the selection committee, but probably not a ton of credit. So
Okay.
I say they probably need to get a good second win for their final fight to get into the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if they get another win, they'll definitely get in if they get another win. But I think if they want a good seed, they're gonna have to get like a good win. I mean, at least Aegis might not be like the most high tier robot, but I mean that is one of the most destructive fights of the season so far. At least, now granted, it's because they have a Kevlar robot, but at the same time, it still looked good at least.
Yeah,
Definitely. No, yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys there. Like, I do believe Fusion needs another win. Now, as like when I show off my rankings for after this episode, like the mid-season power rankings video, which we will probably do later at some point. Basically, I have Fusion in the top 32 right now. I feel like Battlebots would probably be the same way, probably have Fusion in the top 32 if we happen to go to start the top 32 in the next episode, which we're obviously not. But
Yeah,
I don't have them at a very high seed. Like, I think if I remember right, they're in the high 20s somewhere, or as for my rankings and such.
oh, all right, have
Like,
them right
I
now.
think if Fusion wins their third fight, I feel like they will definitely be in the top 32 and such. Like, we've seen what Fusion is very capable of. Probably, like, I bet we will see another fantastic show from Fusion. But if they lose their next fight, I don't think I see them making the top 32 here. No, as
Yeah,
they demolished a rookie bot here.
yeah.
Like,
yeah,
no offense to Aegis, if you're watching, Andrew. Who, but I want to see Fusion win their third fight. But I want to see them take on like a veteran machine and stuff. Like, we know that Jackpot, who's 2-0,
yeah,
is going to take on Lockjaw. Could they take? I want to see Fusion take on a bot like at their level, like potentially Hydra, for example. well,
Not
the other Waiachi bot. That would be a fun matchup, and that would be a
Waiachi Showdown.
and that would be a real test for both machines. Like I think that would be an excellent face off. Of course, I don't know if we're gonna get that or not,
may,
but
maybe not even a veteran they need to fight, but just like a
yeah.
robot that's like high quality. Like maybe they fight Valkyrie or something.
Oh
I,
yeah, something like that. Like basically like a machine that will give them give them like a major run for their money. Like no offense to Aegis and
yeah,
like
Yeah.
because like Aegis could give them a run for their money in their own way, but I want to
right.
see like something like bigger or take for Fusion to take on. All
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Anything else from you two, or should we go to the next one, the spoiled fight?
Yes. Um, if you guys could eat any robot, any battle in this season, who would it be? I think mine would be Aegis.
Oh man.
Battle Royale with cheese looks kind of tasty. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but what about this season? Like robots from this season, like which one? If you could eat any of them, like which one would you eat?
That's a really tough choice.
I mean, I've always wanted to know what mammoth tastes like.
A mammoth would be good.
Yeah, that would be a good choice. No, what? Screw it. I'm gonna
Crafting,
say
I like seafood.
no, what? Screw it. I'm gonna say Smee just to be funny with
Right,
that one.
I'd also like to have Sharko.
Yeah, I was first
Oh, yeah,
thinking
Sharko would be
Sharko.
good.
I was first thinking Sharko, but what about Smee? Because that would be
I
such
feel
an
like Smee would be pretty good.
yeah. All
It's
right.
like that meme, like what if it's actually cake? I feel like cutting Aegis open, it's just like cake inside.
Oh man. Oh, this is so much fun. All right. Next up, Lockjaw and the Big Dill, second to last fight. Right, both of these bots coming off of victories, as we saw Big Dill get a victory in a judge's decision after getting stuck to Adam 94 and such. They're taking on Lockjaw, who got a win over Captain Shredderator in the first episode, and so on. Was Lockjaw, they came in with their heavier spinner to test it out for this one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was mostly tested out. Like, I don't think it was because of the spinner issues they had in their first fight with Captain Shredderator. And then we saw Big Dill, where they knew they needed to take on like a more impressive machine, and they got that here. And they explained that quite well in their game plan for this one. And they definitely went all out for it this one, even though they didn't come out on top. So what are your opinions on this one?
This was pretty much a very classic Lockjaw fight. It did some damage, then it started smoking, and then it was pretty much a push battle. So yeah, Big Dill is gonna have to deal with all that damage.
You gotta put some money in the cliche jar.
Yeah, here I have $20.
Damn, high roller. Yeah, I thought it was a good fight. Lockjaw, I mean, Lockjaw has a habit of doing that where it'll be like dominating and it'll like start smoking or something. But it was a good performance. It survived and it was a good fight. My big question is, theoretically, did they make them fight because Lockjaw's spinner looks like a pickle, sort of? Like, do you think that's why they made the fight happen?
I never thought of that until now, but
my god!
Oh my god! Like
It
seriously,
looks like a pickle. Like,
I think you're onto something, Pory.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. I honestly gotta agree with you on that.
I feel like that's why they got into the fight. They're like, oh, this thing has a pickle for a spinner, basically. So let's pick and fight the pickle robot.
How much money would go in the cliche jar for that if they really did pair these two up because of that?
They had to buy a new cliche jar just because of that.
The second jar.
Are you sure it wouldn't be a third jar and such? No, it's like they fill up the second jar because of that joke. Would they need to get out a third jar is the thing.
Possibly.
Oh man. Probably. Yeah, it did make me happy that they did bring back the cliche jar for this fight. Yeah. Although we
I
really
was hoping they'd reference it.
yeah. Although we really heard of it was Chris shaking it and telling Kenny you need to put a quarter in the cliche jar and stuff. Uh, but yeah, a big question that I even have after this one. When Lockjaw's weapon stopped spinning partway into it, my first like what exactly was that, to be honest? Like I reduce it
It's
down to a few
Lockjaw.
of these options. Now, it's the first option is their weapon died, which I don't think that was it,
Yeah.
because we've seen Lockjaw being very reliable throughout, even with the issues they had in their first fight. The second option is, which is what I think it is did he turn off the weapon because of the smoke we were seeing early in the fight, just to prevent his motors from overheating and burning out completely, like what we saw many times last season? Now, as he did have come in with a heavier spinner, which is going to be harder against his internals and such.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did he possibly just shut it down just because he knew he won that fight, and so he wanted to prevent his internals from taking major damage? And the third option is, which is kind of similar to the last one, did he shut it down because he knew he won that fight, but he wanted some good sportsmanship towards Big Dill? No,
I'm more leaning towards the second option. I don't think Lockjaw would turn it off just to turn it. I don't think Donald would turn it off just to turn it off, because like if he did that, that wouldn't give him some good selection committee results. It probably wouldn't get him far in the selection committee. I think Donald Hudson was probably just afraid that the smoke was gonna keep smoking, and he turned off the weapon to make sure that wouldn't happen. It is my guess. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think it's either 2 or 3. I mean, I could see him turning it off because, I mean, you know, uh, Big Dill was kind of like, crab walking away. They weren't completely mobile. Maybe he just didn't want to be a good sport about it because, I mean, Donald's a pretty good sport, but I could see it being number 2 with him smoking. Plus, it is Lockjaw. I mean, Lockjaw is like a chain smoker.
Yeah.
yeah. In ways, I could see either of the last two options. Now, as Big Dill actually got stuck against the rails partway into it, or near the end of it, right when they were starting to get cat out. Now, as one of the forks was stuck in the yellow part of the rails, and Lockjaw managed to set them free from that, which was excellent sportsmanship from Donald Hudson. Now, he's similar to like Jim Smentowski, where he doesn't want to win like in that way, as for how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, Big Deal was still having mobility issues, and Lockjaw was continuing to try to help them out, which is excellent on Donald Hudson's part. But then also, we did see the smoke in there, so he possibly did turn off the weapon to avoid internal damage.
Like, oh shit, not again.
Like, either way, either one of them is cool and works for Lockjaw and such. Now, they took less damage out of that either way, from at the end of the fight there, ever since they turned off the weapon and such. And all right, so the last question I had for this fight: Lockjaw is standing at 2-0, Big Dill at 1-1. How do you think they're standing as for the top 32 right now, knowing both of these spots have one fight left?
I'd say Lockjaw's probably like one of the middle seeds, like from 11 seed to 19 seed is probably where he'd be seated right now, based on just how, I won't say the quality of the robots, because both Big Dill and Captain Shredderator were pretty good in their fights, but like the main performance of the fight, because Lockjaw was smoking and at the Big Dill fight, and then it took some damage in the Captain Shredderator fight. So I'd say it's middle of the road right now in terms of rankings. As for Big Dill, it's kind of hard for me to know where I'd put him I say he's currently in the top 32, but not a high seed right now because Big Deal kind of looks like it has some reliability issues. So if it loses its third fight, I don't see it making the postseason, sadly. But so probably need their second win to get in.
All right.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
got,
pretty
Pory?
much where I am. Lockjaw's in. They're 2-0 right now. I mean, they could get like split in half in their next fight, and they would make the top 32. But I feel like they gotta do well in their next fight. If they do well in their next fight, I feel like they're going to be in one of the top 10 seeds. If they lose their next fight, they're probably looking like 10 to 15 ish. And as for Big Dill, if they win their next fight, they should get in with probably like a 20-ish seed, depending on the quality of the victory. But if they lose their next fight, I don't think they're getting in.
All right. So, yeah, as for my opinions, I think Lockjaw, don't know exactly if they're in completely, but I think they're in a good place. He's I know somewhere in I know as for my rankings that for whenever we do that, I know I have Lockjaw at between the high teens and the low 20s, somewhere in that range. I think Lockjaw's probably in, but I think if they lose their next fight, they will probably either be in the high 20s or the 30s for their seed here. Now, is their fight with Captain Shredderator, or they had many issues in that fight, and I was just not very impressed with that victory. Compared to Big Dill, they bounced back. They put up an impressive victory here that I think would be quite influential. As for the selection committee, I do think Lockjaw would either need the third win or would need a really impressive defeat if they were to get into the next, if they were to secure their spot in the top 32s. I don't think it's 100% they're in right now, but I could very well be wrong. No, that's all my opinion here. As for Big Dill, I think if Battlebots put them in right now as for Thursday, I think it's possible, but I think they're either in the bottom 5 seeds or not at all in the top 32 right now if it happened to happen this coming Thursday. Now, as Big Dill's first fight with Adam 94, it wasn't the most impressive for me. As for how I saw that fight, I could be wrong, as some of you guys might have seen a much different fight compared to what I have. And then they fell to Lockjaw here, but they did put up a heck of a fight against Lockjaw. They went no fear at Lockjaw. This is definitely not a bad loss for Big Dill. I think this would hurt them a little bit, but I don't think it would hurt them much compared to many of the other machines that we saw get destroyed in this episode.
Yeah, he is a very good driver, I should also add.
Yeah,
he does drive that robot very well.
They took advantage there. They have a major reach advantage coming into this thing, and they were able to use that to their advantage at the beginning of this fight. But then I think when Lockjaw bent their forks, that was the turning point in it.
I'm just
Oh yeah, I think Chris mentioned this fight. I think it was Chris kind of mentioned that this was kind of like a rock paper scissors fight with Lockjaw's weapon and Big Dill's reach.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. All right, anything else you guys want to say about this one, or should we get to the main event?
I'm ready to talk about the main event.
Yeah, I want to talk about the main event.
All right, we should be able to finish this one in time. All right, sorry about that image here, but we got Kraken and Witch Doctor. Both of these bots at 0-1 and needing a win. And now as Kraken, we had a very close, possibly controversial loss to Black Dragon, taking on Witch Doctor, who had another one that could have been controversial as well against Hydra, but for a different reason and such. These two bots fought in the main event and were both looking to avoid going 0-2, figuring that they would be in a much better place to make the top 32. So kind of a must-win situation for either one of these spots. What we saw early in this one was Witch Doctor losing a tooth on their spinner once again, just like in that fight with Hydra, but then they didn't start smoking at least. But Witch Doctor did manage to hold up very well, even with an unbalanced spinner in this one. And as with Kraken, we saw Kraken just going no fear at Witch Doctor, just like what they did with Black Dragon, and got several good bites, and which helped them win the judge's decision here. What are you guys' opinions on this fight?
I think that Matt Svirk is an insane driver. That was very, very impressive. I mean, he did a wonderful job. I mean, he controlled Witch Doctor. I mean, I know he had nothing to really do with the tooth breaking off and Witch Doctor bouncing around like it's a Robot Arena 2 robot, but at the same time, like it's still impressive that he capitalized on it and he showed no fear. He just kept going for it and he drove that thing like he stole it. And I mean, this is the biggest upset of the season so far, I'd say. So definitely impressive.
This main event was kind of bittersweet for me, as I kind of wanted Kraken to win, but I also wanted Kraken to lose, because I love Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor's like my second favorite bot of Battlebots, but I wanted to see Kraken get an upset, so I didn't really want to see this main event. But this was an amazing main event. This had everything you want in a main event. Both bots getting beat up, both bots taking advantage of each other, and giving us an excellent show. This is most definitely one of the best main events of the whole entire show.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it beats Witch Doctor and Hydra, but yeah, I definitely agree. This was definitely one of the best main events so far. So we saw big moments by both teams in this one, and such. Both teams causing a lot of damage on the other, and such. And yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest upsets of the season so far, with Kraken taking out the runner-up. I predicted Kraken for this one, and after their performance in their fight with Black Dragon, as they looked like they were the real deal after that fight compared to like the past few seasons we've seen out of them. I think they proved in this fight that they are the real deal in this one, as like a fight couldn't have been more impressive than what Kraken managed to put up here, despite all the damage they took.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's go through this question. What about the standings for each of these two? Once again, Kraken being at 1-1, Witch Doctor being at 0-2 right now. What do you two think about that?
I'd say Kraken's definitely in top 10 right now. I mean, it was able to beat Witch Doctor, and it took it to Black Dragon. A couple of people disagree with the decision. It was a very close decision. So I'd say Kraken is definitely in top 10 right now. Even if it loses its third fight, I don't doubt that it would make the tournament. As for Witch Doctor, if it wins the third fight, I'd say it has a good chance of making the tournament. Much like Huge, if they get 1 and 2, I can still see them making the tournament. Maybe not a high top 16 seed, but probably like a 20 to 17 seed.
Yeah. By the way, Slammo is their next opponent for Witch Doctor. Great. You want to quick answer that, Pory?
Yes. Okay, so I think Kraken, even if they lose their next fight, they'll probably make it like with a low seed, because they beat Witch Doctor and their performance against Black Dragon was impressive, even if they lost. But yeah, but if win their next fight, I think they're going to get a pretty good seed. As for Witch Doctor, I personally think that Witch Doctor's out. I think they're done, but because they're a popular robot, like they could beat Slammo by a split decision, and they'd be like, "Ooh, this is a top 32 bot now," because they like to sort of do that with the more popular robots. Like if Tombstone loses its next fight, he'll probably still make the top 32. So like he destroyed Slapbox. Like it's like one of those sort of things. But yeah, Witch Doctor's definitely struggling, and a lot of people are saying, "Ooh, it's the the runner-up curse, because every time a robot makes runner-up, like the next season, it does like really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kraken's looking good at least.
Yeah. As for what I personally think even if Kraken loses their next fight, I think they'll make the top 32. I think they'll be just like in Huge's place, where if Huge would win their third fight, even if, as Kraken had a very impressive fight here against Witch Doctor, a very impressive victory. The Black Dragon one was very close. We saw some excellent moments from Kraken in that one. So even if Kraken loses their third fight, I think they are in the top 32, as they've had some very impressive stuff so far, and they've definitely proven that they are the real deal for this season and such. Now, as they've gone after all of their opponents so far, no fear, and put up some impressive shows here, prove that Crusher bots are, just like what Quantum was able to do, prove that Crusher bots are still major threats and could do some serious damage still, even with the new technology that has been coming out lately. As for Witch Doctor, I don't think they're out yet, but I think like Ghost Raptor, I think their chances are not exactly the highest here. Now, I do believe in the runner-ups curse that Bombshell and Minotaur both had, but I think because of the runner-ups curse, because Bombshell and Minotaur, both of them that season, they managed to make the top 16. I think Witch Doctor can make the top 32 and go further than that.
And they're both straight upsets.
Yeah. Like, I definitely believe that Witch Doctor
can come back from that. Specifically.
I think they probably need a very impressive win over Slammo to be able to do it. But I think Witch Doctor is still in it right now. But then, I would probably say their chances are like 30 to 40% right now. But 30 to 40% is still high. It's still possible and stuff.
It's better than other robots that have a losing record right now, probably.
Yeah.
Even some bots that have a winning record right now.
Like, those weren't two terrible losses that they had so far. Now, it's the Hydra and Kraken fight. They put up major fights in both of them and went the full 3 minutes. And it's with a damaged robot. Like, Witch Doctor can definitely come back from that. Like, if they, like, the big thing I hope they repair for their next fight is the weapon, because in both fights they lost a tooth on that spinner, and even though like the spinner was still functional and stuff, like Witch Doctor was just off balance, and it was just major opportunities for both of their opponents. Witch Doctor should be able to come back from that. Like, I hope they'll be able to fix some of those issues that they were having, and like what Minotaur was able to do after they had issues with their drum spinner. All right. Anything else from you two?
Nope.
All right. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you for joining me on this thing, Civilian and Pory. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you will join us for the next one.